Millennial pause. Welcome to the North Grenville Gremlin.
Yeah.
I'm Kate.
I'm Beth.
And I'm Raul.
Mm-hmm.
Now you don't know what to do you?
Yeah, no, we gotta kind of think about it. Should I do like a...
Yeah, like an introduction.
We're your local North Grenville podcast with all of your upcoming events, stories, and gossip. Starting us off today is Raul with whatever this segment is called that I forget.
Yeah.
And he's going to tell you all the cool things coming up in Kemptville and possibly surrounding area.
Yes, that's true. But just today, I'm not prepared. Fully prepared.
Make it up.
But I know the Easter Bunny Hop is happening next week.
Yes, it is.
And it's going to be on Saturday, 11 to 2 p.m. So, all the well, not all of them, but a bunch of businesses in the area, especially in downtown, they're gonna run, special events for kids and just promoting their services and everything.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I saw Danny is doing a coloring contest.
Yeah, and actually I'm gonna be there.
Oh, cool.
I'm gonna be the host.
Ooh.
Yeah. We have a painting contest for a chance to win a $50 gift card or something like that. Which
Ooh.
is kind of nice.
$50 gift card to where?
To be continued.
Nice.
Actually.
Oh, okay, to the store too.
Yes.
I'm not telling you.
And I kind of find that Easter is one of the faves holidays for people because this includes like a long weekend.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a long or a huge preparation of a meal and gathering and everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of fun. Includes chocolate and
Toys.
I bought Meryl's
spring. Yeah, spring is
stuff today,
happening.
actually.
A lot of times it's decent because you can actually go outside.
True.
Yeah, I will be able to this year,
Yeah.
thankfully.
And every time that the topic comes to any conversation that I've been, people has lots of good memories about Easter. At grandpa's or grandma's just finding chocolate and it's kind of
Easter always reminds me of Mom.
Does it?
Yeah,
Why is that?
because Mom did everything for Easter and Dad didn't care.
Yeah. Dad was not into Easter. Dad was a Christmas man.
Yeah, Christmas and Thanksgiving. The big cooking ones.
The big cooking ones.
Which I guess some people do a big thing for Easter, but...
Well, Dad cooked on Easter.
Yeah,
He made a big, but he made
he'd use
a
a
ham.
ham. Yeah.
And I think
Pineapple.
he didn't, he wasn't as passionate about ham as he was large birds.
Yeah.
So.
And roast. Yeah, large birds and roast.
I remember that.
Yeah.
But yeah, Easter was never big with that. Well,
We did a little thing.
we did a little thing.
But it always reminds me of Mom, because she put it together.
Absolutely. And I think for today, that I'm not prepared. That's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
That was wonderful. Thank you for filling us in on all the happenings in Kemptville and possibly surrounding area.
And yeah.
Well, can we add if we know of something?
absolutely.
And then, I
Yes.
mean, I guess we should let you know beforehand. So
Yeah. I just, if you find anything, just send it to him.
Yeah. Because I know on the 30th, not next weekend, but the weekend after, there's the Eastern Ontario Craft Fair that happens monthly at the Municipal Center.
We gotta
Or,
plug
or,
that
or if
stuff.
you remember it when we're recording it, just bring it up.
Because I'll be at those craft shows. Not the one on the 30th, but the following one in April.
Yeah.
I'll be at.
If you guys do see Juicy Gossip, please send it to me.
Oh, yeah.
If you see anything ridiculous, send it to me.
I see many ridiculous things. Do we have to limit it just to Kemptville or just ridiculous? Because there's plenty of ridiculousness that happens
All around the world.
all across, even just across the province.
Yeah, I think we can. I think we should focus on more local.
More
but we
local.
can, if something really good.
Yeah.
Be like, I heard about.
Like,
this.
remember when
thing.
the guys in Brockville got into the cops had to show up at that big fight because they got in an argument about whether or not the world was flat,
Yeah.
That's amazing.
and they set fire to a truck or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, counts. So Beth here, I forget the segment. This segment is Beth's segment, where she tells us stuff that happened a long time ago, and she's going to tell us about the Witch of Plum Hollow.
Yeah. So
Love it.
I like spooky stuff. So you hear some spooky stuff, but I also like. I think history's really cool, especially when you add in spooky stuff. So
Everything's better when it's
and in this area, and not just this area, but all over Ontario, all over Canada, actually, there are many, many, many crazy ghost
All over the
stories
world.
all over the world. But I mean, just in this area alone, there's all sorts, especially involving the Locks area and just the way the development of this area came about. There is so many spooky stories and weird stuff that has, well, what you would consider unexplainable sometimes. And sometimes there's just historical figures that are just very, very interesting. And that's where the Witch of Plum Hollow comes in. So, a couple of weeks ago, me and Mom, I took Mom out because she's my intrepid researcher / photographer. Self-appointed. Also ex-librarian, so she's got access to all the good stuff. So,
yeah.
So we went out to, basically, it's called Sheldon's Corners. It's close to Athens, Ontario. So it's about 40-minute drive from here. Got to take some pretty crazy back roads to get there, but...
love a good back road.
Well, the drive itself was cool. Because you see all these little, tiny, they're little hamlets and villages and hollows that go forgotten a lot of the time. You don't realize that they're even around here a lot of the time. Mm-hmm. Especially with Kemptville becoming such a centralized area for commerce and business and how large we've grown. We forget that there's all these neighboring... Have we grown? I don't know. When we moved here, there was 1,800 people living here.
Now there's like 1,800 people.
18,000. There's 18,000 people here, I think.
Between Independent and Walmart.
But you forget that all these like tiny little hollows exist, and like these are places that are just like steeped with their own historical relevance and stories and that sort of thing. So the Witch of Plum Hollow, and just let me quickly look at this. So basically, it's about 40 minutes away from here, and it's along like really pretty lonely back roads. Kate and I grew up in what I would consider the woods of what are Eastern Woodlands, which is basically
still the woods for now.
Still the woods for now.
Oh, somebody's at my door.
But like we grew up with when this region is called the Eastern Woodlands, based on the First Nations people that first settled here. That's what the region is called, and we grew up within those woods. So. Growing up in that kind of environment, you have a healthy respect for the wildlife around you. You have and by respect, I mean you're kind of afraid of it.
That kind of respect.
Fishers, right? I know they're so cool. I'm like, no, they're not. Vicious coyotes. Like you have a healthy respect for these sort of things. So this place is deep in the woods still to this day. Like it's there's not much around there, and so her homestead still stands there. Now it was purchased in 2006 by a private owner, so you can't actually go inside. However, they put $35,000 of their own money into it in order to rejuvenate it back to its original state. The difference is it's not cabins and settlements in the 1800s or what were considered whitewash. And that's a process that's actually like ecologically not that sound, so it's not what we can do anymore.
They should open a museum though, like the Sanderson sisters. Is what they should.
But it's not a very it's a very small cabin. It's maybe.
How many people are they gonna get in a day?
I mean, you gotta want to go there. Like you gotta to find it. It's a bit of a thank God for GPS, or else we'd still be out there. So we went, but basically. And I just want to look at this, girls.
Yeah, no. That's fine.
So, I mean, it's on a dirt road now, but it's what would have been considered a furrowed track. It would have been only accessible maybe by horseback. It would have been accessible by horseback, but maybe by carriage. Mm-hmm. Maybe. I can't see it being where it is, being accessible by anything other than a single track horse lane. The houses that are out there now, that would have been all untouched forest. So this place was really deep in the middle of the woods. And basically, the woman that was known at the time as Mother Barnes lived there. She later became the Witch of Plum Hollow. That was sort of a name. Well, it was a name given to her at a later date. But she became known as Mother Barnes in the area. And Mother Barnes was a clairvoyant. So she wasn't really a witch. She wasn't what we would when you hear tales of witches. She wasn't an alchemist or anything like that. She wasn't out there hexing people. She wasn't one of these natural foragers that made up healers, or she wasn't a healer or anything like that. She was a clairvoyant, and she was what they called a water dowser. So a water dowser, right? What's a water dowser? You know what it is. You know why? Because we used to do this as kids. Water dowsing is where you take a Y-shaped stick.
Oh, yeah.
And it's also called doodle bugging. and a Y-shaped stick, and it's supposed to find water sources under the ground.
Okay.
So the stick will vibrate.
It's about as accurate as a Ouija board.
Yeah. Like.
No. I've seen that in really old cartoons.
Yeah, cartoons.
It's called water dowsing or water witching.
Yeah.
They called it doodle bugging as well.
And we used to do that all the time.
Yeah, we did it as kids.
Yeah, we did.
Like we were like, oh, we're gonna find some water when there's a ditch like 5 feet away. You know, like, a ditch that we would swim in. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The beavers
with the leopard frogs. So she was a clairvoyant. She was a water dowser, and also known as a soothsayer. So basically, someone that could see into the future, could predict your future.
A what sayer?
A soothsayer. Soothsayer.
Soothsayer.
So she could see into the future. She could predict. Basically, if you came to her with any questions about, let's say, your love life, am I going to marry? A lot of, according to the stories I've read, this is crazy.
Would she throw like some chicken bones down and?
No, she would. Oh my god! Like this is straight out of Robin Hood. Like, like
exactly.
No, she was a tea leaf reader.
Okay.
So, the phrase that she used is, "Would you care to turn a cup?"
Okay.
So you turn your cup over, she'd pour your tea, and then read your leaves, right? And apparently, through the formation of the leaves, she could answer some of your questions. Because it was colonial times, a lot of men would come to her and ask, political and business questions, and women showed up and were like, who am I gonna marry? Because I need out of my dad's house, that sort of stuff. But basically, the story of her life is actually very, very interesting. So Mother Barnes was born Jane Elizabeth Martin. She went by Elizabeth. She was born in 1794, and she was born to a well-to-do Irish landowner of English descent. So basically, that means it was an Englishman that, during the colonization of Ireland, moved over, claimed land in Ireland for their own, and that was in the county of Cork, which is, if you look at a map of Ireland, it's on the more southern part. Mm-hmm. So, what is now known as the Irish, the Republic of Ireland, as opposed to the northern part, which is considered part of the United Kingdom. So they're in the Ireland part. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And she was born to that man and a woman of Romani traveler descent. They used to call them, and this is a derogatory term.
My big fat gypsy wedding.
Yeah, they used to call them Spanish gypsies. So this is where she claims that she got her special powers from, was from her mother, because she was the 7th daughter, so Elizabeth was the 7th daughter of the 7th daughter, so she was given a special gift as a result. Yeah, so 7 obviously had some sort of special connotation or power to it.
Cultures,
yeah. So she was born to a Spanish gypsy woman, a woman of Romani descent, and a crazy English guy that helped take over Ireland. Anyway, and her father also was a colonel in the British Army. So he not only was a landowner within Ireland, he was quite high up within the British armies. When Elizabeth was 20, he tried to force her into an arranged marriage with a man that was double her age. So someone about our age now.
So like normal,
someone that should have been her dad,
normal for the day.
Yeah, normal for the day,
yeah.
right? So this would have been, early 1800s. She was like, nah, I don't want that. And she was also in love with a young military officer by the name of Robert Joseph Harrison. Bobby Joe.
Yeah.
Bobby Joe Harrison.
Love it.
So as this arranged marriage day approached, or wedding day approached, she was like, no, we're having none of this. And they secretly eloped, hopped the first boat to North America, and off they went. Right? So there's some argument on where they originally settled. Some people say that she first settled in the northern U.S. Well, some claim that she first settled in Cobourg, Ontario. So, however, there is some sort of evidence. Now, I couldn't find the evidence, but there is some speculative evidence that she lived in an apartment above a psychic woman in New York City when they first arrived, which is where she actually learned how to grift, how to read the leaves.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, because, however, she also claims that she was born with this particular clairvoyance, but then there's also this evidence that maybe she lived above this psychic in New York, and that's how she learned how to make a living, let's say. And basically, when mom and dad learned about the elopement, they cut her off. They were like, no, they disowned her. They're like, you're no daughter of ours, blah, 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 blah. I'm sure that was dad's doing. I have, who knows what mom thought. But either way, she married below her station. That's the way it was put. So
It's hot.
It's hot. Yeah, till the electric bills due. Super fun. Yeah. So apparently these two were extremely devoted to each other. They were really happy. And they had one son that they named Robert Jr. Unfortunately, when Elizabeth was 27, her husband Robert Sr. died.
Mysteriously?
No, but I couldn't find out how he died.
That's mysteriously.
Yeah.
Apparently she loved him a lot. But yeah.
So did Sandra Bullock in Practical Magic. Still mystery.
That was a curse.
Well, we're
You don't
talking
know.
about it.
Well, there's no evidence that he was cursed, just that he died. And we have to remember...
Her parents didn't put their seal on the marriage. Maybe they
This
were
would have been like 1830. People just dropped dead for no reason.
mysteriously because there was witchcraft afoot.
Okay. You might be right. I will leave that as open to interpretation as probably was just died because he didn't know how to wash his hands.
Yeah.
You know? Like,
Such a mystery.
so anyway, she was left with a small son to care for. And it's said that she mourned deeply for a few years. And then...
Why is that funny?
because she got married a few years later. Again, like she mourned deeply, but of course, being a woman in the early 1800s,
Gotta keep it moving.
You gotta keep it moving, right?
Yeah.
Like if you don't have,
Gotta hustle.
if you don't have male support, you don't have anything, right?
Yeah.
So after 4 years, after the death of her first husband, so she would have been 31 years old. So not only is she a widow with a young son, she's also what they consider old at this point. She's old. 31.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's practically a spinster.
Dried out.
Just dried out, right? Just. She married a shoemaker from Connecticut named David Burns. So this is where Mother Burns comes in. This is where the last name Burns come in. And then eventually in the autumn of 1843, she and David settled in Sheldon's Corners near Athens, Ontario, in the homestead and the small farm that is out there, and that's where she would remain until her death. It's also important to know she never actually lived in Plum Hollow, although Sheldon's Corners and Plum Hollow are only 1 minute apart by car.
Okay.
Like, it's literally, you spit down the road and there's Plum Hollow. And I went to both locations, and there's like 2 houses in Plum Hollow and like 3 in Sheldon's Corners and a cemetery.
Okay. More dead people than alive?
More dead people than alive. And then about 4 minutes down south from there is Athens, Ontario. So that would have been the major settlement village that was closest.
Okay.
So they had, in this little tiny cabin, I mean, if I had to, like, guesstimate how big this cabin was, it was, like, maybe 300 square feet.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's very small. They had 9 children up in here.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. 6 sons and 3 daughters. Their 2 eldest sons, John and Thomas, died as young children.
Oh.
Again, can't find it. I don't know why.
They didn't wash their hands.
They didn't wash their hands. And it's... So they died as young children, so there were 7 kids total, including the eldest, Robert, from the previous marriage. Okay. So 7, either that or... It was worded funny. So she either had 8 living there or 7 living there, because I wasn't sure if Robert was included in that 9 or unincluded in that 9. Because it just says David and Elizabeth had 9 children in this little tiny cabin. So it's in this tiny cabin where Elizabeth's gifts are first formally documented. So before this, there's never been any evidence that she was using clairvoyance at any level.
Okay.
This is just where it starts to become documented. And this came about because David grew tired and uninterested in farming.
Fair.
So he left. He just up sticks, and he snagged the youngest son, David Jr., and went to Smith Falls, where one of their other sons, Sam, was living, and Sam had 10 children of his own.
Wow.
So there's also a wide
Who
berth.
are these women?
There's a wide berth of ages, like,
Yeah.
So he takes David Jr., he's like, nah, I'm gonna go live with Sam, who had 10 children of his own. Sam Barnes later would become a reeve of the town of Smith Falls. So there's some political affiliation in there as well. So while this was happening, Elizabeth's eldest, her son with Robert Harrison, Bobby Jr., he would join up with the American Army, and he became a colonel, and he later died in the Civil War in Kansas. So he went back to the States. So you have to remember, this is also a time where, during colonial times, where the status of Canada was really unsure. The Americans were trying to push their way in. The Americans...
As they do.
Anyway, so they were trying to push their way in. This is also during a time where our capital... So we didn't really have a formal capital. We were 2 provinces, right, at the time, and we didn't really have a capital, and kept getting moved around, especially along the Locks area of this area, simply because they were trying to keep the Americans from overtaking the British Parliament that was happening here. So we didn't even have our own we didn't even really have our own government. This was very much an unstable time. So he up sticks and went back to the States and became a colonel and died in Kansas during the Civil War. And he died as a colonel in the Union Army, so the Northern. So Elizabeth's left with, I think, if I did the adding and subtracting, I think there's 5 kids left in this house. So she had 5 kids to feed, basically. This is when she turned to fortune telling to provide for all these kids, right? And it didn't take very long for these extraordinary talents to earn her a living, fame, and then the name Mother Barnes. All right? So some folks in the area feared her.
So somehow she was being successful.
She was very successful. So basically, the things that she seemed to predict or, her soothsaying tended to come true. Wow. This is what's recorded. This is what people have said. Are they full of it? I don't know. But all I know is eventually Mother Barnes became Mother Barnes in the area, and she started to become very well known for these talents. And so in a time, though, when witchcraft was like a feared notion, it was commonly equated with like devil worship, Satanism, the goat, all that stuff. You would expect a woman like Mother Barnes to be looked upon with suspicion. However, maybe because she was described as kindly, so she wasn't like your like creepy witch in the woods type,
That's too bad.
Like Hansel and Gretel.
I like a good swamp witch. That's my favorite.
They're fun, eh? Or she was also regarded as accurate and was to be respected, right? She escaped a lot of the same fates that many other women earlier had suffered. Like, as we know, like England especially was like horrible for witch burning. Like really bad. Yeah. Really bad. However, there's piles of accounts, and this is kind of funny. She hated housework, but like begrudgingly did it. And she spoke.
Am I a witch?
I think you are a witch. Anyway, she spoke unfiltered about it, though, which was really frowned upon at the time. So the fact that men would still come to her with these questions and put up with the fact that she was like, "Don't mind my house. I don't care."
Yeah.
I think it would be interesting to be like a fly on the wall at that time to see that kind of dynamic, because it's not often that you hear that women would get away with that kind of stuff, Yeah.
But
so
she was a swamp witch then.
She was a woods witch. She was in the woods, not a swamp. So basically, it wasn't long before like piles of people from all over New York and upper and lower Canada were like trekking in to talk to her, and she advised loads of different people. Some even offered great sums of money for her predictions. She, however, only charged 25 cents, no matter who you were. It was 25 cents across the board, which actually at the time was that's quite a bit. A young reporter came to interview her and coined the name the Witch of Plum Hollow. I mean, she wasn't really a witch, nor she lived in Plum Hollow, but it's the most stuck. Inaccurate name. It's the media, right? Like, even early media was like, like,
gotta get me
Mother Barnes of Sheldon's Corners, no thank you. Yeah. Like, we're gonna call you the Witch of Plum Hollow. And so it stuck. And it's stuck to this day, because it's like literally what people let you search it up, and that's how you find her, is through that term. This is also when her son Williston got married, and she was like, move her in, and the new wife picked up doing all the chores of the house so she could focus on just her career.
She's a feminist.
She was a bit, except for the part where she doled it out to the younger generation. She was like, nah, you do it. Get someone else to do it.
You have to start your activism somewhere.
Okay, so most of her clientele had the same sort of questions. They wanted to be consulted on love, marriage, money, business. There's a lot of stories of her helping farmers find lost livestock. So that was a common thing. Like if your livestock up and disappeared. There was one story where a farmer came to her and said, I can't find my sheep. What happened to my sheep, right? And she was like, oh, your neighbor stole them and they're now skinned and nailed to the wall of his barn. Yeah, so she went. The farmer went, and it happened. Apparently,
she set him up. Who does that? She set him up. This woman's out for infamy. Skinning. You think
she went and skinned? Because we're not talking like, oh, I have a hobby farm with 5 goats. We're talking hundreds of animals. You know, large flocks.
How do you nail hundreds of animals to the wall? It was only
you
a
have
few.
To be a witch to do that.
It was only a few. It was a couple. It was still a
Either way, apparently, the farmer went to this neighboring farm and found all his sheep were nailed to this wall of this barn.
Who was this neighbor?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I wasn't there in the 1850s. So
I feel like.
I mean, that's creepy alone. Like to say, I'm going to steal your sheep.
You don't recover.
That's bad because that's someone's livelihood. That's their means of
that's
surviving.
Old Joe over there eating nails sheep to the wall. No big deal. He's quirky. Like
he's a bit funny.
He's a weirdo.
But some of the other stories, like this is an interesting one. There was a Dr. W.F. Jackson from England came over because he wanted to find this missing property deed from England. So a property deed that was for a property in England, and he suspected that some Canadian relatives had stolen the property deed and brought it with them to Canada and were hiding this property deed. So Mother Burns consulted her leaves and told the doctor that the deed was tied with blue satin ribbon and hidden in a white satin slipper. So the Canadian relative's house was searched, and sure enough, in the back of like a fake part of the dresser drawer was the deed in a white slipper tied with a blue ribbon. That's what they say happened.
Why did I put it in a slipper?
Well, these are also people that are nailing sheep to barn walls. I don't know the thought process of the early colonial.
Okay.
I mean, I don't think they thought about much, to be honest. And there's also a story how Mother Barnes led authorities to the body of a murdered man named Morgan Dockstader. So she consulted the leaves and described a swampy area in the surrounding woods.
Told you.
Where Dockstader's body would be found. And she even went further and named the killer as a cousin of Dockstader's, Edgar Harder, who later confessed to the murder because he was so shaken up by the fact that Mother Burns had found him out. So he confessed to this murder of his cousin, Morgan. And he was hanged in Brockville. So, justice, I guess, was done. I mean, kind of a weird trial, though. Like, the witch said you did it, so fess up.
Yeah. I got better.
The most interesting one, though, and I find this really, really interesting, is it involves a young lawyer from Kingston who traveled to consult Mother Barnes one afternoon. This young lawyer was named John, and John asked Mother Barnes about where the location of the nation's capital was going to be. And this was like I was saying before, it was pre-Confederation, at a time when Canada was consisted of 2 provinces, right? Upper Canada and Lower Canada. The capital was shifted around, trying to find a place that would be difficult for American forces to overtake should a threat arise. Even the village of Merrickville was under consideration for our capital city at one point. So they were looking around for a place to house government. Bytown, which is now modern day Ottawa, Bytown, which was like this gritty lumber town, was under consideration, but it was just literally like a lumber spot. Like it was just a place along the Ottawa River where a lot of lumber was just processed. And as a result of all these shifting, the colonies were suffering a heap of disorganization, uncertainty. So this lawyer comes and consults Mother Barnes, maybe to ease his own mind during this tumultuous period. Mother Barnes consults as her leaves, and she gazed into the future and described 2 cities sitting on either side of the banks of the Ottawa River, separate but sharing commerce.
Oh, that's what it's like.
She said that Queen Victoria would choose the city to the south as the place to house Parliament. Mother Barnes also gave this young lawyer a bit extra and told him that one day he would sit at the head of that Parliament. This young lawyer's name was, in fact, Sir John A. Macdonald.
That's why you didn't say his last name. That was a twist.
And the city Mother Barnes so vividly described as Ottawa, what future Bytown would be.
Mm-hmm.
So Mother Barnes lived to be 92 years old, which at that time is like a feat in itself, right? She died in 1886 in that same small cavern in the eastern woodlands, and she was buried in the tiny Sheldon Cemetery in an unmarked grave. There's a memorial stone there now that was later donated by cheesemakers Claude and Ella Flood from Plum Hollow. And like I was saying earlier, Homestead was purchased by a private citizen and was revived to its former modest glory. And it stands at 329 Mother Barnes Road on private property, but is visible from the road. And if you decide to go see it, please respect the owner and Mother Barnes herself and observe it from a distance. Mother Barnes herself left 68 living descendants when she passed away, 7 children, 47 grandchildren, and 14 grandchildren.
Wow.
Jumping mouse.
And she was a real person.
Yeah.
Well, cool.
You're at 34 minutes and 19 seconds.
Oh, I talked a lot.
Yeah, you're gonna have to pare it. It was good though, but you gotta pare it down.
Yeah.
I'd cut out maybe some of the stuff about her kids or her, you know.
Just there's a whole lot of life in there.
Yeah, for sure.
But she was a cool lady.
She's a very cool lady.
I mean, was she a grifter?
Probably. But
Although
I mean, like
the story
takes
of
all
John A.
kinds.
I mean, John A. Macdonald's kind of funny because John A. Macdonald was considered when government was finally formed, they called him Old Tomorrow because John A. Macdonald was notorious for procrastination, which says a lot about our current state of government. Basically, your first prime minister was called Old Tomorrow. Like, I'll get to it later.
So moving on from the past and going to the future, we're going to move on to the segment called Kemptville with all your local gossip coming straight from Kemptville's own social media. So this is what people are talking about.
Yeah.
So apparently, no source cited. There's a 4% tax increase for land tax that's been approved by council. So the post itself goes, so a 4% tax increase has been approved. How about backing off on the non-essentials? At this time, people are having a hard enough time just getting through the bills as it is. We have enough paths and park updates for the time being. Rural roads are okay to still be rural, gravel roads, etc., etc. So, there's like 120 comments on this because it got a rise. Got people talking. And what I'm learning now in this moment is that I should pick out my favorites. A lot of people talking. Again, there's always the debate. Not the debate, but you have like the old school Kemptville people that have been here longer than God.
Us.
Yeah, us people. Well, I do.
We've
been here forever.
35 years.
But I don't want to say that we.
We're not Turtle Club.
Well, it's just, it's kind of the battle rages on between the old and the new. We have the new people coming from the city, and they usually
or other places. There's lots of other places they're coming from, not just the city.
Yes, but the context of what happens online is often
the city
old
versus
old farmers, longtime residents getting upset about the new city people who have a different idea of what anemones and bylaws and whatever are. So we see a lot of that. I'll pull out more like lighthearted ones. And I'll definitely there. Bob says, Nancy Peckford needs a new bike. It's just amazing. 7 likes.
7 likes. 7 people agreed.
A few more things like, welcome to Trudeau's Canada.
Oh,
And somebody
what the
said,
heck
you spelled Doug Ford's Ontario wrong.
which has neither of which have anything to do with a municipal tax hike.
Yep. So I'll be more diligent and actually pull out like favorites and stuff, but those are some of the highlights.
Why do you think people do that? Invoke a federal or provincial name in something that's... Why do you think people do that? Just to get people losing it?
No, I think that they really...
Or they believe that?
Yeah, totally.
Pick up a book.
Another comment. Hope all the new jailed offenders and supporters are ready to burden the extra cost it's going to bring.
Jail defenders.
The new jail. That's another
Oh.
hot topic on the internet.
Yeah.
That gets the hackles up. Those are some good ones too.
How do you feel about the jail?
How do I feel about the jail? I'm torn. One hand of me really doesn't care. It's practically in my backyard.
Mm-hmm.
I guess front yard. But I'm not bothered by it. I've heard a lot of different arguments on both sides,
Yeah.
and I haven't been swayed either way. One of my favorites is it's going to bring the family members of the offenders into Kemptville, and it will ultimately affect the quality of human that lives here.
Hate to tell you, probably
They-
family
they-
members are already here.
I've grown up here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they just have a lesser time to travel.
They're not
to
as
see
they're
them.
not as visible, but they're 100% there, and some of them are funny and interesting humans. You know what I mean? But that quote unquote quality of person is already here and has been the whole time. I don't really worry that much about that.
Well, yeah, and when you think about basically when you think about like socially, people that end up in jail, like they're normally from poor communities. They're from have-not communities.
Yeah.
Kemptville was for a very long time a have-not community. Like for a very long time.
Yeah, maybe just
Like,
having grown up here and it being I don't want to say it was a rough place. It was definitely rougher than it is now.
Mm-hmm.
It was wilder.
Yeah.
That maybe the world still turned then and it will continue to turn
Yeah.
now. I'm less bothered by the prospect of a jail than I am all the deforestation that's happening. At least this is going in an already cleared field.
Yeah.
I'm less perturbed. I don't know the ins and outs of how much it costs and how much it's going to bring in and all that. I'm not an expert,
Yeah.
but just from my very layman existence in this town, I'm not personally bothered.
Yeah.
But I can see why some would be.
Well, that's the thing. I can see the other side of it. So
Yeah.
simply because, and where I stand with it, and this is what grinds my gears a lot of the time is, when places like this are built, it's a lot of the time it's done without the municipality's input at all, or the people that actually live in those live in those communities, because it's going on Crown land. We have zero say about what happens within
yeah.
this land because it's technically still owned by, I guess it's His Royal King Chuck. It's
With all due respect.
King Chuck and Camilla own it
Yeah.
now, right? Like
Yeah, I guess so.
it's not even owned. It's owned by a.
Colonizers.
It's owned by a government entity that has nothing to do with us, like a monarchy that
Yeah.
doesn't really, I mean, when's the last time they came here for a cup of tea? A while, right? Unless you're Harry and you're running away.
Yeah.
And but so I can understand, like, because it's on a site that is, it's just, they have the right to do whatever they want with it without the consultation of the people that actually live in those communities.
Yeah.
And that's what's bothersome to me. Like, that shouldn't
and
be...
I get there's
like, in 2024, we really?
Yeah, I mean, they say that it'll bring jobs. Whether or not they're jobs for the people within the community, I'm not convinced of. They've had to extend water out there. What the cost of that and where it came from, I don't know that either. And I'm just not willing to trust the comments on the internet. I'm there for the spice.
Yeah. I mean, if you really wanted to fight this, you could consider petitioning for a land back.
I mean, I couldn't do that, but
But, I mean, if the municipality really wanted to fight it, I mean,
Yeah.
it happened in Burt's Rapids with the old jail.
Is that what happened with that?
Yeah, the old jail is now actually a nature preserve owned by the original inhabitants. I'm pretty sure it's Algonquin.
Really?
And as a result, that was because of a land back petition. So if you wanted to challenge the fact that the province is putting a jail here on Crown land, you could petition a land back. And what that means is basically the First Nations community now has input on what happens to that land.
Well, that's interesting.
So there's, that's a good way to push back.
Yeah.
If you wanted. Mm-hmm. Now, can I see anyone bothering to do it? No.
Well, I mean, it's also like anyone who is capable of that.
Yeah. Me and you can't go out there and do it.
No, it's a wonderful idea, but
it's a wonderful idea. It would be up to our council. It would be up to our municipal government to decide to petition against the provincial government for a land back inquiry.
But that involves, time.
Time, money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's easier to just rant on Facebook.
It is much easier to rant on Facebook.
As is the whole segment. Do you care about the jail, Raul?
No, I don't really care about it.
It's pretty close to your place too, eh?
Yeah, but I'm actually more concerned about how Kemptville is growing.
Same.
And the speed of that.
It's wild.
The first time that I was here, that I visited Kemptville, was like 20 years ago.
A totally different place, right?
And it was a totally different place to.
I'm surprised you remember
7
anything.
Years ago that I came, and that's now it's a totally different place than 7-8 years ago.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, because you just celebrated
and you
your
still think how
7th.
the deforestation is happening just to build houses and houses and houses.
Well, and that's the thing. That's like the land clearing that's happening. What's going up? And it seems to me what's going up is a lot of cookie cutter.
Yeah.
Stuff.
A lot.
So. Mm-hmm. Like I'm sort of shaking my head and going, how are people even affording these homes?
Yeah, and it's not so much the style of home that I really care about. I don't live in those communities, so I don't really care about the style of home. If you like that sort of thing, whatever. That's
and it
really
depends on
it's the quantity of people.
It's how fast it's happening.
It's the amount.
It's happening so fast.
I think the issue with those cookie cutter houses is in a not huge chunk of land.
Mm-hmm.
They're like 200 houses.
Yeah.
So you think about
space.
like you clear cut a forested area, like sewer has to go in there.
Oh yeah.
Electricity has to be run.
Schools for kids.
Yeah, like is it located near like there's there's all sorts of environmental factors.
Health services is a big thing. My elderly mother is, I won't mention names, is with a doctor that is not. And getting her a good family practitioner, impossible. It has been on wait lists for
forever.
Almost 2 years. My mom's in her,
she's 67.
Mid to late 60s.
And think about it, like any kind of service, like I don't know, childcare or care.
Childcare is
you've been experiencing piles of problems
waiting
with that.
list for my girls for more than a year.
Yeah.
And we're still waiting.
Yeah.
So imagine like with that amount of people.
But that also brings to the fact like we're the type of businesses that are moving in here, like we're at no loss for fast food places. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing.
No, don't misunderstand me. Is there a plan?
Yeah, is there a plan for that's the thing. Like if this growth is gonna happen, you need to think about all the things. Like if we're gonna start knocking down forest the way we are, we need to think about like what services are these people going to need that are like I have no problem with people moving here at all.
No,
none.
But if there's a lack of services already,
like you're piling onto a community that's been here for a long time, has had access to these services their whole lives, and we were very privileged to do so. I mean, like it might have been a rough time growing up, but we had more than enough family doctors to go around. We had our own little hospital. We had 3 elementary schools for a very small community. We had a lot.
At the very beginning, there was only one high school.
Yeah, at the very beginning, there was only. But when you think, like, my graduating class was 67 people.
Is that all?
That's it. Like, my grad photo looks like what today's kindergarten photo looks like. Like a single kindergarten class. That was my whole graduating class in high school. So we had all these things, and maybe it's like I don't like it's, you know, maybe I sound a little snotty, and I'm like, but I just feel like this growth seems exponential, and everybody suffers if there's not enough to go around. You know what I mean? Like, so.
Yeah. Anyway, to wrap things up, there was this dog on this post that he's adopting, and he's really cute.
What's he look like?
He looks fuzzy. His name is Terrier Terry.
Terrier Terry. Didn't
and we're
Jesse,
gonna post him on our socials for you to check out.
Jesse was showing off a dog. Never
That
mind.
dog went back pretty quick.
Oh.
Never mind.
Never mind.
Bye, Dolly. Dolly for 24 hours. Bye. So yeah, we hope that you enjoyed listening, and if you did, please like and subscribe.
Oh, I hate that.
It's gonna be done though.
I know, it's got to be done, but
Every 2
understand that nobody wants to say that. Not for real.
Anyway, so just running through that, I think if it's going to cause a longer discussion, I will only do one piece to keep time down, because I think we really need to like keep on top of that, right?
Yeah.
And I think you need to pare down a little. It was really, really good, but maybe some of the stuff that wasn't directly about her, I don't know. Do whatever you feel.
Well, it's rough because you're trying to put it in a historical context.
Yeah.
And I'll give
Like
you guys all a copy as well, so you can look at it individually.
Oh, that would be great.
But I mean, next time I want to talk about the ghost of the Tip to Tip Trail. And there's not much.
There's
on
a
it.
ghost there?
Yeah. There's a ghost on the
I
tip.
used to walk that all the time when Mabel was dead.
There's a ghost on the Tip to Tip Trail.
Maybe Mabel's.
And it's very what's that crying mother, from what's her name? Like
Who?
La Llorona?
La Llorona.
Yeah.
Oh, is it
very
like
much
that?
like that.
Okay.
Yeah, she's a broken
Heart.
spirit, broken-hearted spirit.
Oh, I love those
Yeah.
stories. Cool. Okay, so, but yeah, your assignment, pare down
Yeah.
while still, feeling full or whatever.
Okay, she was a rough character because like there's a lot. Like she was
That
a real
was fun.
person, so it's not like a regular ghost story.
So I'll probably pick one, just if we're gonna, and I love the conversation, but we should also, I feel, keep it a little more light and less opinionated.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because also, like,
That's so hard to do.
I know, but trying to keep it like,
Middle ground.
yeah, because also, like, everyone's gonna have different opinions, which is great, and we do want a little bit of controversy, like you said, because it drives clicks. But stuff like cookie cutter houses, my husband works on one of those sites and runs it.
Yeah, true.
You know what I mean? And as much as I hate
Yeah,
it,
and I hate
it also pays my mortgage.
Well, that's the thing, and
know?
I would hate for it to be taken in a disparaging way when I don't mean it in a disparaging
Exactly,
way.
Yeah,
exactly.
I know,
And
yeah.
it does create jobs, and like I know a lot of people that work those sites who are, awesome.
And as I said, that's
And
not
those
the
are
point.
also- and-
Yeah.
The point is the
Yeah,
services
yeah.
round.
Yeah, that's not
So
the way
it's-
it's
But keeping it
Focus on- yeah.
more to that but like just some of our language around it, like cutter
Yeah.
houses and things like that. Like Neil
Yeah, you're right.
Neil will use things like chainsaw artists and things like that, like
Yeah.
which I get, but maybe not to put out to the public. Just keep it a little lighter.
Yeah, and I would
Yeah,
hate
yeah.
to disparage working class men. Like I would
Yeah.
hate like these
And
are
remember,
these are the
good
dudes
thing
that
is
put food
it's
on the
not going to be
table.
live. We can call
Exactly,
whatever
and
want. So-
and if one of us says something that might toe that line a little too hard, we can always like be like,
yeah.
shut up. But yeah, I think it was pretty good.
Yeah,
I felt more
forgot that was
comfortable than I
running.
thought I would.
I forgot that was happening.
Okay, I'll hit stop now.